Hello, everybody. This is your friend and neighbor, Shawn Harwell, back again with another exciting episode of the Never Heard of It podcast, joined today for the first time since the last time by my associate.
And your arch enemy, Craig Moorhead. So you're listening to Never Heard of It, whether by mistake or on purpose. And you can, if you'd like to contact us, you can find us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. If you would like to subscribe to the podcast and it just magically appears on your phone, iPad, or Zune, you can subscribe at iTunes or Stitcher. Leave a review or something, or don't. It's your life. It's not mine. But thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about a cool movie. Shawn, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Craig. I have not yet let anybody convince me that I'm a sea person or like a merman or a sea monkey. So I think on the scale of things, that's pretty good.
Are you even suspicious that you might be? You have any just long-held beliefs that...
I do like fish.
Sure.
Shrimp are pretty good. I don't know. I could be into it if that's where we're headed.
Sure. If you had a tail and some gills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like this Paris climate thing is going away, so I think the sea levels are gonna, they're gonna be knocking on my door here in the mountains any day now. So it's just something to get prepared for.
That's for sure. So, Shawn, what is the movie we're going to talk about today?
We're talking today about a movie called Night Tide. Technically from 1961, although if you were around at the time, you probably didn't see it in the theaters until 1963. But this was suggested by a friend of the show, Tyler Baum, the creator-editor of The Charlotte Omelet, which you should all go check out immediately. Craig,
yes.
Let me read you a little synopsis here from the IMDb.
Oh, boy.
On leave in a shoreside town, Johnny Drake, becomes interested in a young dark-haired woman. They meet, and he learns that she plays a mermaid in the local carnival. After strange occurrences, Johnny begins to believe that she may actually be a real mermaid that habitually kills during the cycle of the full moon. And also, I'd like to point out that if you go to the Night Tides page on IMDb, they actually have an email address for the person that wrote that synopsis. So please spam him and just say hello.
There you go.
I think he'd appreciate that. And let him know how he did with that synopsis. I think that's a fair enough synopsis. What do you think?
It's certainly one of the better ones from IMDb.
Now, Craig, I know for a fact you had never heard of this movie. And I think it's notable, though, to us, and it interested both of us, perhaps, A, because of the mermaid factor, B, because it stars Dennis Hopper, and this had to be one of his first roles. He is extremely young. Gosh almighty, watching him at times, it felt like I'm watching, a little bit of James Dean, a little bit of young Brando. There's a way he goes about his performance and the way he carries himself that I think is of an era and still kind of fascinating to me. I will tip my hat to him, the late, great Dennis Hopper, and say I don't think he phoned it in on this little movie.
Indeed.
About a guy walking around trying to figure out what's going on with the girlfriend who pretends to be a mermaid at the carnival.
Great.
Now, do you have any experience with the Mermaid Carnival sideshow?
No. I've never seen that or heard of it being a thing. Have you?
I feel like I have.
Oh.
And I don't know, I'm watching this movie and there's one instance where I can think of this little traveling crap show that came to my hometown that may have had a Little Mermaid thing like that. And literally the effect is now, I'm thinking, well, you just get a woman to swim in a tank, put a mermaid tail on her, and Bob's your uncle, right?
Sure.
In the movie, it's not that exactly. It's like she's behind a plate of glass, she's not in water necessarily, but there's water in the front of the glass, and it creates this like shimmery effect, so it looks like she's in the water. She's got a very obviously fake fabricy mermaid tail with some sequins on there. Charge 25 cents, whatever, make your money.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm gonna just pretend that did actually happen because I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it just made me appreciate this. It made me nostalgic for a period that I probably did not experience. But speaking of the mermaid, this is played by Linda Lawson, the actress, and she plays a character named Maura. The person that sort of is in charge of her sideshow attraction is Captain Samuel Murdock, played by Gavin Muir. Mm-hmm. We also have a fortune teller named Madame Romanovich, played by Marjorie Eaton. There's the merry-go-round operator's daughter. Yes, there's a merry-go-round operator and his daughter. Ellen Sands, played by Luana Anders. And Tyler mentioned, which I did not even notice, that one of the reasons that he thought this movie was so interesting was that in the opening credits, there is a person listed as head bongo player, played by an actual bongo player named Chano. Or Chano.
Yeah, I saw the name. I honestly just thought it was Chano.
Chano?
But yes.
Yeah, that's kind of that is kind of funny. That's not something you see every day. This film was directed by Curtis Harrington. It was written by Curtis Harrington based off of his own short story, and he has a very lengthy career. A lot of television. There's some Dynasty, Charlie's Angels, and various films as well. So, Craigie. What did you think of this little movie? Now, we should say that if you go look at this poster, boy, they sell this thing pretty hard as like some sort of horror movie. You know, I'm looking at it right now, and that's like, was she human? ... Or was she a beautiful temptress from the sea, intent upon loving, consuming, and killing? And I think the movie that unfolds is not exactly of the such that if you went in and paid your money after looking at that poster thinking, oh, this is going to be a thrill ride of minutes, probably going to be a little disappointed. Yeah. Knowing that, what'd you think, Craig?
Here's what I think, Shawn. Yeah, it's definitely sold as a creature feature. It seems like there's going to be a monstrous thing that's going to happen. I wondered at the end, is that why I remained so interested in it throughout the movie? Like, if I had known going in that no one was really going to turn into a monster, then... But yeah, you watch the trailer for it, and it's heavily suggesting that there's a monster involved and things are going to go really bad for Mr. Drake. Ensign, I don't know. What's a Navy? Seaman Drake? Thank you.
Definitely Seaman.
Seaman. Anyway.
Seaman.
Oh, man. I already feel like I know 2 emails I'm going to get. Anyway. But that being said, though, yeah, it's the movie just feels dirt cheap. Mm-hmm. The sets are they look like they're on almost like a high school stage. Like it's just there's not a lot of attempts to. I don't know. Yeah. There's clearly not a lot of money. It says here the budget was $25,000 in 1961, which probably in 1961 was a lot more than $25,000. In terms of value, but I got to say, I mean, again, I was definitely entertained all the way through, and it wasn't just because I was watching it ironically. Dennis Hopper definitely has something to do with that. He's got that presence.
Yeah,
but it's also like a very simple story.
Super simple,
and it just sort of keeps moving enough, I guess. Like you kind of know what you're in for. You get the vibe. It does have a feeling like those 60s like monster movies. Like it feels like that's where it could go easily. It could just easily go there. And yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason I was pretty much into it the whole time, even once we got into like sort of fake octopus monsters and stuff like that. What about you, Shawn? How do you feel?
The same. And I'll say this, like, while it feels like, yes, it could go into that monster realm at any moment and take those turns, it was pretty well clued on from the go that this is slightly different than that. Because I think I clocked it at around right at almost 5 minutes before there's any dialogue. Right. And so you have this pretty extended sequence where, basically Johnny's getting off the ship and checking out the town and walking around. And yeah, the sets are not great.
No.
But I will say, like, this movie, I think, takes place in Venice, California, and like Santa Monica area as well at times. It looks nothing. I mean, it looks like it's a different world, at least a different country than that. I don't know where they shot it, but if it's Venice, California, like, holy cow, that whole area has changed so much, even just all of Los Angeles. So it's kind of interesting to see that, it's like you're just walking around, you have some nice sort of like street photography kind of stuff. And it's like it's an America that doesn't exist anymore. You're walking into a very obviously sort of like bohemian jazz bar. There is a lot of flute that first opening sequence. I mean, there's a lot of flute going on.
Flute intense.
And but I kind of liked that vibe. He's sitting, he's smoking. It's just like, oh man, this is like when America was cool, in a weird way. So it's like infusing that, and then very quickly, like, okay, there's the girl sitting here watching, and she looks beautiful, but there's something a little strange about her. And like, ultimately he makes his way over and is trying to talk to her. And that was kind of cool, like some of that interaction. Like I remember, and I wrote down, like, he asked her what her name is. And, Hopper's doing like a pretty naturalistic performance, but she says, "I am called Maura."
Right.
And like the way she read that, it was like, wait, what? Like, I am called Maura. Who the hell says their name that way? So it was like, it's so weirdly formal and just pitched in a way that was like, okay, this is kind of fun. It's a little campy, but also interesting.
Yeah.
And then their conversation is interrupted by this old woman who just walks up and speaks, I think, Greek, in some different language, and walks off. And then, like, I think she doesn't even acknowledge it, really. They have some kind. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Point being, you're kind of thrown right into it, that there's clues and, okay, like, this is going to be a little interesting here. There's some intrigue. Mm-hmm. Now, what I didn't like about the movie is that, boy, he spends a lot of time walking around and like asking other people about his girlfriend, Maura, and pretty much all of them are saying, you might think about leaving her. You really, by the way, she had 2 boyfriends recently who were both found dead and drowned. There's moments where he seems like he's taking that all in and probably gonna be like, oh shit, like I might be in trouble here. Like this, I thought the natural turn of events is like him saying, look, I don't want to see you anymore. And then her kind of preying upon him, right? Like, I feel like that's sort of where maybe the modern thriller would go.
Sure.
And it just never quite did. It was like he was still in love with her. Which I think maybe falls into the mythology of like the siren, which gets talked a little bit about. But that said, it's a short movie. It was easy to be engaged with. I was in it through the whole long haul. And I kind of liked that, even when we see like the fake octopus, I think that's in a dream sequence, right? Mm-hmm. And it has a very real resolution. There's some lingering questions I have, which we can get to.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically that old woman.
Yeah.
But it's not, it reminded me of like an extended episode of like a Hitchcock TV thing, or something where you've got what seems like a supernatural element. They do a good job of the suspense of whether that supernatural thing is actually what it looks like, or if there's a real explanation, a natural explanation. And in this case, there always is, right?
Right.
And that's what you have here.
Oh, but then it also gives you but is it? Sort of the end with a question mark, kind of,
I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting in those terms. Mm-hmm. Did you buy the relationship? Let's start there. Between Maura, the carnival mermaid, and Johnny Drake, who kind of seems like he's just hanging around to have some fun offshore. I loved how simple and kind of innocent that Hopper played that character.
Yeah.
He even like lies for reasons that just a kid would lie for. Like
Sure.
it's like the merry-go-round operator, basically Maura, the girl that he meets in the opening scene. He walks her home that night, finds out she lives above the merry-go-round there at the boardwalk area on the coast.
Yeah.
He goes back the next day and is talking to the merry-go-round operator, he being Johnny Drake, Dennis Hopper, and the merry-go-round operator just kind of casually says, like, "Oh, have you known Maura for a while?" And he lies. And I think whatever. He says, "Did you just meet?" He's like, "No, I've known her for a while." And it was like, well, why would he say that? Like, he just met her the night before. And it's like, there's nothing gained by lying, but it's just like, well, okay. He's just a little, this is who this dude is. Like, he grew up in Denver and left to go see the world on this ship. And, he thinks he's being like street smart a little bit, maybe.
Right.
He's not, So I kind of love that. But I don't know. Were you interested in just them as a relationship if you removed the fact that maybe she's a mermaid?
No, I mean, I didn't think it was necessarily, like that did not pull me in. It didn't feel like there was a great spark there. Because, I mean, just kind of like what you're saying when he came in and asked her name, she says, "I am called Maura." Like, she kind of plays it like she's an alien the whole time. So, yeah, the fact that, I mean, here's this 25-year-old kid in the Navy who's like, here's the thing, Shawn. I feel like in real life, if I'm a 25-year-old Navy guy who's got some time to kill, like, I don't know if I'm going to spend it with the girl who's acting like she's an alien. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I might just go to the movies.
The biggest thing that I had difficulty reading was whether or not she even liked him,
Yeah.
Because there were times where it just seems like, especially like in that opening, she was just like, "I'm just trying to listen to this music. Don't bother me." I was like, oh, okay. And then it's like he persists, which I think is totally believable, makes sense. But then
sure,
she kind of like oddly warm invites him to come over for breakfast the next morning. I'm like, what happened? Did I miss where she made that turn?
Yeah.
And there were other moments where I don't know. I still felt the same. Like, I think they're even saying love and that word a few times.
Mm-hmm.
They're frolicking on the beach a little bit. But it was a little tough to read. Like, there's that alien factor to this girl that is kind of intriguing. I think my favorite example of that, Craig, was the breakfast scene itself.
Yeah.
Out on the balcony. Would you like to describe that scene? Because that was kind of amazing.
So,
the end of that scene, anyway.
So they basically go out on the balcony, which, as far as I can tell, is at the end of a pier. Right? They must have been shooting that from the end of a pier. Because you see the beach. Yeah. You're like far out in the ocean. Like that's like, I was not prepared for that. I was like, what? How? Where is this? Have they always? That was one of the things. Like kind of the spatial relations of things. I was kind of like, is that merry-go-round? I mean, maybe the merry-go-round is on the pier. I don't know. Regardless,
a little undefined. Yeah.
Right. So they're on this balcony, and you see this amazing view. And she says, she's like, "Fish for breakfast," and like gives him some fish. Which I don't know. I mean, I'd probably go for, to be polite, but I don't usually eat a lot of fish for breakfast anyway. Mm-hmm. And then they started admiring the seagulls. And then one of them just lands on her? Or does she like yank it out of the sky? I can't remember now.
It just lands on the table.
Oh, it just lands on the table. And then she sort of takes it like it's a puppy.
Starts petting it.
Sure.
And I read that they tied wire around the bird's mouth, so its beak, so it wouldn't peck the shit out of them while they're doing this.
Oh my god! Yeah,
but sure. But it's so weird, and like he has no reaction to that.
Yeah. And even funnier when you think about the fact that she's not a mermaid. Like it is like that kind of stuff. Like if she was a mermaid, I'd be like, oh sure, she has a seagull. She's a mermaid. But no, she's just a regular human being who is petting a seagull. Yeah. So she's kind of like a homeless person, but she has breakfast for everybody. I don't know.
And I'll be damned, I don't know if seagulls do that. Has anybody ever had a pet seagull? I want to know this.
I mean, somebody has to have had.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I went on a ferry once, and the ferry driver guy was just hanging out front, and there's a seagull standing on its head, as if it had done that before. So maybe I need to go investigate that. Another thing that we should talk about was in relation to the plot and this Captain Murdock character, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the guy that is, I mean, we don't really see any of the other boardwalk attractions here other than the merry-go-round. Mm-hmm. So, and don't meet any of the other people. It's so scaled back that it's like, okay, well, I guess there's just this girl, Maura, and this mermaid attraction. And then this one guy who's the ticket taker and kind of sets up the whole thing. And he's this older guy. He's British. I think the story that she tells is that he found her on an island when he was in the Royal Navy. Mm-hmm. And she was a young child, I think, left alone, if I'm remembering correctly. At any rate, he came back for her, brought her to America. Man, it was so weird to get a read on this guy because, you know, on the one hand, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. You know, it's this guy, and I guess he took her in and turned her into a mermaid attraction. That's interesting. And then, you know, halfway through the movie, he's telling Dennis Hopper that she's a monster and, like, he drinks too much. And there's that scene at his house, and I don't know. Like, I did find myself asking, well, what the hell is this guy still doing with her if she's this monster, you know? That was, again, like the thing where, you know, the middle section of the movie is just filled with people giving Dennis Hopper reasons not to be with this woman.
Right.
And he was one of them.
Well, and
did you suspect...
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you know, just to get right to the end, did you suspect that he was involved with the murder or the two previous boyfriends? And did you think that relationship was on the level, I guess? Or did you have suspicions?
Oddly enough, at that point, I didn't have suspicions. Although you lay it out pretty clearly.
I didn't either.
Because I was suspecting someone else completely.
The old woman? Was that what you were thinking?
No. At that point, see, here's the thing you got to understand about me. I'm incredibly smart. So I always figure things out by looking at the least likely person that could be causing these problems. I had settled on the merry-go-round owner's daughter because she was the one who told him about the story. And then later on, she has this weird talk with him about, like, something about, yes, well, you know, sometimes when you love someone and they don't love you back. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I was like, oh, she's the one, like, killing those guys. And it's just being blamed on her or something. Or not even blamed on her, but it's just like, those are the last two guys that she dated and they're both dead. So watch out. And then you're going to reveal that at the end. So I totally was like, oh, it's her. And then, the fact that it was this guy, I should have guessed. I mean, the guy's got a hand in a jar of formaldehyde and it's just on a shelf. Like, what was that? What was that thing about the hand?
I don't know.
How did that play in exactly? Like, he's just explaining, well, in some places, your hand gets cut off if you steal something. Yeah. And that person's hand got cut off, so I kept it. That doesn't make any sense. I
also loved in one of those scenes with Murdock, just another example of Dennis Hopper just lying. When Murdock is telling him about the siren mythology, and he asks if he knows about it or whatever, and Johnny Drake just says, "Yeah, I've kind of heard of it."
Yeah,
and it's just like me when somebody asks if I've seen a movie. I was, oh no, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. You know, I was like, I haven't.
That was that was very honest. I like that.
Interesting stuff. You know, I think the biggest question I have with this movie, Craig, is the scene where, you know, and it's pretty well established at this point that Johnny and Maura are a couple. Mm-hmm. Johnny's, I think, had the first dream. Johnny has like two dreams here, and like this is the first dream. He goes over to her house and like she's in the shower or whatever, and he lays down and falls asleep. And in the dream, she comes over and you know, she's out of the shower and I think kisses him or whatever. And then suddenly he's being strangled by that fake octopus that we mentioned. But when he wakes up from this dream, he sees wet footprints in the apartment and follows them out. And boy, isn't it amazing how long those wet footprints last? When I mean, all she did was take a shower. You know, I mean, it goes way down the hall of the apartment, down the steps, down down the boardwalk. And in the night, he's still following them down the boardwalk to the ocean, where she is underneath the pier. And you hear her scream his name. And I don't have a great read on what was going on in that scene. It seemed as if Maura had been... I think she said something about they were calling me Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's a hysterical just cut where she gets slapped so hard by a wave right in the face.
Oh yeah,
like just the angle that they have it, and just the way I laughed a couple times. Actually, I have to admit I watched it twice. You know, in some ways, like it's meant to like be a shock to Johnny. Like she's out here in the water under the pier, but at the end of the day, she's just standing there. Like, I don't know. Did you, like, what was happening there? Do you have any sort of read on that?
Well, I mean, yeah. I, at the time, I assumed that's pretty much what it was, that she was hearing voices calling her out there. And, like, this is... Yeah, again, I was kind of torn between she's really a mermaid and this is a monster movie with a mermaid, which, by the way, I thought was kind of a cool idea, kind of a cool mix to say... She's a mermaid, but this is a monster movie, so it's not like she's just going to be some beautiful mermaid. Like, she's going to be something crazy,
right.
Which she isn't.
Yeah,
but
it's not Splash.
Right,
yeah.
right. But yeah, I mean, I was just like, oh, the whatever voices are calling her out to sea, and soon she'll have to go, and that's what's going to lead to this whatever bad thing is going to happen. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty fine with it. Yeah, I like seeing people get hit by waves when you have no budget and you just have a cameraman who is further out into those waves than anyone else is, and he's getting rocked by that
That's
stuff.
True, yeah.
Everyone's just trying to act in there.
He didn't die.
Yeah. I can't imagine the conversations going on off camera where it's just like, can we please get out from under this pier? No, this is the most important part. So in terms of like moments to sort of sell the mystery of the story, I think it worked, like that functioned pretty well in terms of like what she would realistically do, considering like what's actually going on and all that kind of stuff. So, but it does seem to say that she's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't know how Johnny, who's now known her for like a week, would really be responding to that.
Yeah, I kind of wonder why. I mean, I feel like it would have been interesting, although I think they were either shooting night or day for night. I mean, it probably would have been hard to just have Johnny run out there and just look out at the ocean and like she's nowhere to be found, and then suddenly she just kind of surfaces, and then says something to the effect where you realize she wasn't just out for a swim,
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was a line I wrote down. There was a line of dialogue that I just did not hear. Like what she says something right after she says the voices. They were calling me. That I just didn't make out, and maybe should have turned the subtitles on. But those of you who are going to watch it, you can do that job for me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, Craig, I thought there was a couple interesting things that happened after that sequence.
Yeah.
They go back to her place, and she tells Johnny he should get a massage.
As you do. Yeah. Anytime anyone I know has a nervous breakdown, they then later suggest I go get a massage, and that's what I do. On the pier, by a guy smoking a cigar.
Who then, when Captain Murdock comes into the bathhouse, he's like, "Oh, there you are, Johnny." He's like, "Nice to see you there." The masseuse turns to Captain Murdock and says, yes, chewing through the cigar, "Want me to pound you later?"
Yeah.
And boy, I laughed good and hard at that one. That line was great. And
I wrote that one down myself.
And then we have yet another lie. Murdock says something about, hasn't Maura been acting strange? Johnny says no. Don't know why at this point. And despite all these warnings, I'm moving right to the end here.
Sure.
Or the climactic scene. Craig, Johnny goes scuba diving with old Maura there.
Yeah.
Did I miss something as to why they go scuba diving?
No, I was thinking the same thing. Because I watched this movie without much sleep on my side, and I kept thinking, man, I missed something big.
I don't know that you did.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. They just decide to go.
And you kind of feel like, was there something originally written where you see her actively suggesting this, or even resist. Like maybe it's Johnny's suggestion. You can tell like she's fighting
Right.
who we think she really is, and not wanting to do this with Johnny, not wanting her to see him, him to see her underwater. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that. The next thing you know, they're on a boat. They've got scuba gear, and they go underwater. And you do get some underwater photography. Some of that stuff's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, correct me wrong, because I want to get the sequence right. She pulls the plug out of his air tank, correct? Or the hose?
Yes. Or she cuts it, or she pulls it.
She cuts it. She has a knife. Right. That's right, because I thought, oh, shit, she's going to kill him. Which that would have been, or stab him, which would have been interesting. Cuts the air tank, and then like he freaks out and turns. This is all underwater, and then she kind of swims away into like the black inky muck,
right? And
he surfaces. Right. Now he did not actually stab her or do anything physically violent that would keep her from surfacing. Correct?
That's true.
Okay, because folks, she does not come out of that water alive.
Right.
Right?
And let's talk about that real quick. So he's forced to the surface.
I think we should, because we have some theories on that.
Right. Okay. He's forced to the surface. She swims away with the tank, right? She's still breathing. She's swimming off. He is immediately distraught. Like he he gets up in the boat. Why?
Yeah.
And then he's like comatose in this thing, and then he's back at his place, and it's the worst thing ever. And all I could think was, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe she just swam somewhere else. Like everything seemed to be, I mean, it's not good that what she did. Like that was very confusing, I'm sure, but why? Like he's just immediately deciding that she is dead for some reason, it seems like. Or is it just like, maybe that's how they broke up with people in 1961. So really, he's just reacting to a breakup.
Oh, I think that's definitely the only way you can do it. Yeah,
I think so.
She was pregnant, and that was the only course of action they had. No, here's what I think is going through Hopper's mind. Right?
Yeah.
Johnny Drake realized that she did this, which means it's probably true that she killed those two boyfriends prior to him. Mm-hmm. And then she was, despite knowing all that, and still going scuba diving with her. Oh man, it's Jesus Christ. Those people were right. She was going to kill me.
Sure.
So I bought the fact that he did not go back underwater for her sake. He picked up on the fact that what she was doing.
Right.
I don't know that I would have just sat there for a while. I think, if that happened to me, I'm like, holy crap, she just tried to kill me. I'm out of here on this boat.
Yes.
And leave her out there.
Yeah. That's a good point. I did not jump to that. I did not think about that. But yeah, that must be it, that he's responding to that.
Okay. So, but that maybe checks Johnny's box. But Maura's box is a lot more complicated. That sounded gross.
Thank you.
You got a woman whose spoiler is not a mermaid, so we think. Pretty sure.
Right.
Okay. There's probably some brainwashing going on that is convincing her that she's some sea monster, which we'll find out later. Mm-hmm. She takes him down there. She cuts the tube. It doesn't work. So she goes and drowns herself. Now, I read somewhere something to the effect that this action had something to do with her freeing him and saving him from a future fate of murder by her.
Right.
But that seems a little hard to swallow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could say, well, she had a knife. She could have just killed him, right?
Right.
Instead, she cut the tube. Maybe she wanted him to get away. I don't know. I think it is hard. That is a problem when you have a character who thinks she might be a mermaid. It's hard to follow her motivations 100%, not being a mermaid myself.
Right. I mean, you can't really speak for her since you haven't Yeah.
I don't speak mermaid language.
Don't speak mermaid. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't warn him to stay away from her at any point, does she?
Not really. That's the thing too. I mean, she's not entirely inviting, but they definitely move into a loving, mutual relationship by that point.
Right.
They have made out on the beach. I don't know. And it gets a little weirder after that, I think, because then you get the second dream sequence. And in that one, Hopper dreams that he's walking down to the beach, and I think he's hearing, basically the siren call, and he sees Maura on the rocks in full mermaid form. She's going to jump off, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. He reaches out for her, grabs her hand. Did it look like her face morphed into Ellen's? I swear to God, it did not. That did not look like that actress throughout that entire sequence to me. Which only confused me more.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Ellen, but I did have that same moment where it was like, that doesn't look like her all of a sudden. But she is laughing.
Yeah.
And that's not something she does otherwise in the movie.
She is laughing.
She's usually keeping pretty straight-faced. But she kind of laughs at him and then she's gone in the waves.
Yeah. And I like, actually, the idea that in that dream that would turn into Ellen's face because, ultimately we were kind of left to think that, okay, maybe these two could be a couple.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case. It was not completely clear. But let's walk through the end here because Hopper, after this, goes back to the carnival show, if I'm correct. There's a scuffle with Murdock. Murdock accuses Hopper of killing her. I believe he pulls a gun on him. It's still a little unclear as to, I don't know, all that. Anyway, There's a fight. There's a gunshot. It breaks the glass tank. And there is Maura's dead body, which I think somehow lands on top of Murdock. That was a little unclear to me as well. Did the water knock him down? Anyway. In short order, we're in a police station, and Murdock is Scooby-Doo style telling us exactly what the case was.
Right.
He was in love with Maura. She was not in love with him. He kept her close. He killed the two boyfriends prior and tried to warn Johnny away. Johnny instead went scuba diving, as one does. And Maura died. He presumably found the body.
Right.
Now, how he's going to know where the hell to find the dead body of Maura in this ocean, I don't. Maybe she could watch it short. Maybe he was spying on them the whole time. I don't know. That's definitely a plot hole, I think.
Big one.
Brought back the body, clearly distraught, is gonna finish off Johnny and I guess go find a new mermaid.
Correct.
Instead, confesses to it all. He's clearly going to jail. Johnny is there. Ellen, of course, is there with a cup of coffee because she's the nice daughter of the merry-go-round operator. That's what you do. I don't remember. She was like, "Oh, I just heard you were in jail, and I came down to see you." Blah, 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 blah.
Always a good place to pick up dudes.
He leaves with the naval police, and I guess we assume he goes back to the ship. Which, by the way, he sure spends a lot of time not doing anything on the ship in this movie.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Was that satisfying when you really break it down?
No.
Murdock's explanation.
No, and I think it's a good example
In what ways?
Of a certain kind of bad ending where it's like there's so much going on that is questionable that you can't be entertained by how everything's wrapping up. Because first of all, so Johnny sees that the show is still going on, okay? So if you're in Johnny's place, you have no idea that she might be dead, right? You just assume that she tried to kill you.
Yeah, you should be relieved, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So then, so he kind of hides his face and he goes up and he pays the money, he goes inside. I'm assuming he's going to go confront her, right? Goes inside. There's some kids who are looking over the edge and looking in and laughing about the mermaid. Ha ha ha. Then Johnny goes up and looks in, and she's just laying there stock still.
Yeah. Those kids looked at the body.
Right. So one of my questions was Murdock just insane at that point? And maybe he was just totally insane with sorrow that he would put a dead body in this thing and let people go in, like take money from people to let go in and look at it. And no one has any idea. I don't know. Like that was bizarre. The whole thing about, how he found the body was bizarre. There's a lot. And then there's the thing at the end where he denies that there was a woman at all. There was an old woman. They say, but what about the old woman who Maura kept seeing? No, there's no old woman. And then the cop even so you get a little sort of a tinge of like, oh, something mysterious was happening. And then the cop is like, he's just probably protecting her. It's like, oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was an odd way to, they really tried to wrap things up nicely. Even with a nice little Edgar Allan Poe quote at the end. But man, it kind of turned into such a simple movie. It really turned into a mess there at the end. What do you think?
Do you? I kind of agree. While I like the fact that Murdock was involved, because again, I didn't quite expect that from that character.
Yeah.
I like that he killed the previous boyfriends. I think that's interesting.
Sure.
And you've sort of seen that before, the guys that just can't let go, but they still they have some sort of weird arrangement, and in a way like he and Maura need each other.
Yeah. That's
cool. Finding the body and all that stuff, and then that is definitely messy, and the old woman's messy, and he told her basically all this time that if I'm remembering it correctly, he was the one responsible for making Maura think that she was indeed a mermaid or one of the sea people, which I don't know, that to me is it might have been more interesting if somehow Maura got that notion herself, say via the fortune teller or this old woman. And she's starting to think this, and that became the rub between her and Murdock. In his own weird way, he was protecting her with these other guys because they were going to find out that she thinks she's a mermaid, or maybe they did find out and they thought she was crazy and try to, who knows? They could have gone that route. They didn't, and having him be the influence on that, I don't know. It just makes the whole Can you imagine what a prequel to this would be? I mean, how weird would that, what kind of weird ass movie would that be? There's the story of this man who was a sailor in the British Royal Navy who brought a young girl to America and convinced her she was a mermaid. What is that? It just it's so weird. And like you say, just kind of messy and loose. But, let's theorize for a second who the old woman was.
Okay.
What's one possible thing that woman could have been? Who was she?
That's the tough thing. I mean, I don't know, the queen of the sirens, the mother of Greek mermaids.
That's what. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely some tie to Greece that was intentional.
Sure.
And she was real because Hopper saw her.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just makes no sense that she would just be following around this woman.
No.
I don't know.
No.
So weird.
Because apparently the woman had no power of any kind. So she wasn't
No, I know. That's the thing. Yeah. Why wasn't she the woman who was responsible for making this Maura think she's a mermaid? That just makes too much sense. She should have been that character.
Right.
She could have been the fortune teller. They could have just combined things there.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would like to point out for just a brief second. When the fortune teller reads Johnny Drake's tarot's cards, we get a Knight of Cups reference.
Yes.
That's the card that she rolls. I was like, oh, that's what that title is.
Explained a lot.
And for those of you wondering, about that Malick movie, she explains it in straight terms of the Knight of Cups represents a fair young man, innocent and searching, which makes a ton of sense for the Christian Bale character in that movie. Other little things here of this movie. Apparently, Peter Lorre was approached to play the role of Murdock, and the filmmakers could not afford his salary, which makes a lot of sense when you watch the movie.
Sure.
Apparently, Dennis Hopper's sailor suit was darkened to look white and stand out as white in this very black and white movie.
Interesting.
And he almost got arrested or threatened by military police who thought he was just wearing a dirty uniform. It's kind of hilarious.
That's great.
And Hopper being Hopper, he also apparently insisted on not using a double for the scuba diving sequence. So maybe some of that distraught on the boat was because he was really about to die in that sequence.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He was hardcore.
And then last but not least, he's definitely hardcore. Apparently, according to IMDb, the original negative of this movie is owned by none other than Nicholas Winding Refn of Drive and Neon Demon fame. And boy, I like to think that's true. It just adds to the mystique and weirdness that I know of that guy, and he's just got the original print of this movie floating around in his house there. That makes me happy.
I love it.
Craig, any little thing we did not talk about that you liked about this movie? I have one little thing that I laughed at.
You know what? The one thing we didn't talk about, and it's a minor thing, but at the end when Johnny's leaving jail and the merry-go-round owner's daughter is there to, I don't know why she was there, honestly, aside from just she liked Johnny. But Johnny says some kind words to her, and then I'm pretty sure he pets her like a dog, and then he walks out. Like he sort of puts his hand on top of her head in this weird, on the front side, and then he's gone. I just wanted to point that out. I thought that was an amazing bit of acting. What about you?
I think you mean he pets her like a seagull.
Pets her like a seagull would be more accurate. That's true.
My thing was, there was a moment when Dennis Hopper is in Captain Murdock's house. I think it was his house. And he's drunk, Murdock is, and he's telling him that Maura is a monster and he's just to stop seeing her, blah, 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 blah. The siren mythology. I think there was a scream. There was something that distracted and brought Dennis Hopper's attention to the upstairs of this dwelling, which is where Maura was. But on his way up, he bumps into a cat statue, and I swear to God, I think there was a meow sound effect that was in that moment. Because it's right around, I think the scream happens from upstairs, Maura, which causes him to bump into the statue, and all in that moment where there's still kind of like this lingering scream noise, there's a tiny meow. And I hope that wasn't just my ears, because I love the idea of that.
Yeah.
that statue, along with the jar that had just had a hand in it, just kind of fit the vibe of that place.
Oh, man. Yeah, I got to get one of those for my house, I feel like.
We'll get them to just do an episode of this podcast, our cat statues.
Perfect.
Well, Craig, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to pick on this movie. I still feel like this is an interesting one to do actually sit down and watch this. I'm going to recommend it, and I'm going to recommend it as a great early Dennis Hopper performance, a fun performance from him, and an interesting case study in movies that kind of toe the line between not exactly being horror and not exactly being drama. Yeah. What about you?
I feel the same way. It's one that I would, if I had lots and lots of free time, I would like to kind of watch again and sort of dissect just why really it was able to hold my interest as well as it was, you know, and really just kind of wondering what the second viewing would be like. Is all the fun drained out of it now that I know everything that happens? But yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
It could make an interesting triple feature with Splash and Lady in the Water, so maybe that's just something you do one day.
Sure.
And then top it off with Little Mermaid. At any rate, thank you again, Tyler Baum, for your suggestion.
Yes.
Everybody, please go check out Charlotte Omelets, Facebook, and everywhere you can find them, Instagram as well. And then also come make suggestions for this show. We'll be back next week with a mini, and then we'll probably talk about what we're going to watch next and all the fun that we have coming up. And neverheardpodcast.com. That's where you can find us. Craig, you got the last words for us tonight?
I do. The last words are from the late, great Dennis Hopper, who once said, "Just because it happened to you doesn't mean it's interesting."
Ooh,
yeah.
Dis.
Think about that.
All right, everybody. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon. Bye.